And good evening, folks, and welcome to the show. I'm Pastor Sherman, and this is Christ and Culture show. I want to welcome you all to the broadcast. Hope everybody's doing really well. The weekend after Mother's Day, and hopefully everybody was able to spend some time with Mama and show her how much you love her and stuff like that. I know we did over here at the Ray household. Mama got to speak to all the kids, and that's all they really want. They just want to make sure that they're loved and they're adored and stuff like that. I want to make sure if you are watching us on our YouTube channel, folks, I'm going to go over there right now and and open up our YouTube channel. If you're you're just watching this for the first time, you might be watching us on YouTube, you might be watching us on Facebook or whatever. But go over to our YouTube channel. And on our YouTube channel, we've got the chat feature open. Let me get over there really quick. And you can actually get in on the chat, which would be great. And we'd love to talk to you. That's at Christ and Culture, or at Christ and Culture. You got to put the and there, and you'll actually be able to get to the show. So definitely you want to get there. I'm on there now, as a matter of fact. And you can probably hear me in the background. It sounds like somebody's talking. But would love to get in on the conversation, and you will. And if you don't, you can just write to us at christandcultureshow@gmail.com. That's christandcultureshow@gmail.com. Let's get the show started, and we'll bring on our co-host on the show, Pastor Tommy Allums. Pastor Tommy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Pastor Sherman. How are you?
I'm doing great. Just great.
Good, good.
Another beautiful day. I'm hoping. Did you have a good Mother's Day? I didn't even ask you about that. I mean, you're not a mom, obviously, but yeah.
Yeah, me and my brother have a joke. We tell each other Happy Mother's Day. It's just
Really?
a joke, and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was good. It was nice, relaxing.
Mm-hmm.
It was rather hot that day, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and it's cold today all of a sudden, or cooler. But
Cooler.
yeah,
Yes.
it was nice and just relaxing. She was doing good that day.
Yeah. Good. And you've got such a lovely wife too. I mean, she's very quiet, soft-spoken, and everything else. Uh, my wife is going. I just want to get her by herself. We want to talk and stuff like that. So you've got a
She'd
lovely
love that.
family. Yeah.
Yeah, she'd love that.
Yeah. Anything else new going on? Church, everything going on good at church and everything?
Yeah, everything's going good. We're planning some more trips. We're looking at DC
Mm-hmm.
in October, having a gathering there, and so we're just kind of planning that out and just trying to get people raised up and released in their gifts and their callings.
Amen. Amen. Well, that's a good thing. That's what we want, right?
Yep, yep, yep.
And yeah, it's gonna be a good time. Hey, so Pastor Tommy, so I told you, I think I told you last time that we are going to be moving into a new church facility in the
Yes.
next couple of weeks, and so everything looks like we're still going in that direction. And once again, I'm going to let everybody know now, as we're inviting Pastor Tommy in there in our first weeks of having our new church facility to come in and help us celebrate. So we're putting you on blast right now. So you'll
That
so
that'll be awesome. I've been praying for you guys too, so that'll be awesome.
thank you. It's going to be good. It's really going to be a good thing. Um, Bigger facility, parking, the whole thing, and we hope that the neighborhood is going to really welcome us in, and so that's about all you can ask for, right?
That's it.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit. I know we talk about all kinds of things before we're going to go on, but one of the things I really want to start before we can get going is that the new Pope, he's starting to get acquainted with all the new stuff and everything else. So, and I think we touched on it last week a little bit. Tell me your thoughts right now on the new Pope. He's an American guy and from Chicago. Um, but a lot of people know him as Pastor Bob, I guess, or something like that, or Father Bob, or whatever. Uh, so just give me kind of your
Yeah.
thoughts on him.
He seems like a mild-mannered guy. Like most priests, they seem like they're mild-mannered. I was an altar
Mm-hmm.
boy growing up, so
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, he's. I think he's coming out the gate slow,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll get a chance to see who he is. I watched Sunday. I watched him deliver his first message, um, and so it was just, it seemed kind of status quo for now, and let him get settled in and
Mm-hmm.
see all the things he needs to tackle and address, and then we'll kind of see from there. But it seems like there's some things that he agrees with Pope Francis, and then there's some things that he doesn't agree with. So we'll see how that kind of gels out.
Yeah, that this is going to be the thing about him, though. Is he going to be a unifying force for the Catholic, denomination? Is it going to be somebody who's going to be unifying for the world? Because I mean, it's a huge denomination. They are in every country, every continent there is, and so they have a lot of sway. So is it
Yeah,
going to be a good thing? Is it going to be a bad thing? And we're Protestants. And so we don't agree with everything the Catholic Church does, and yet there's a lot of commonalities. And there's a lot of things that are very common to us, and so we don't speak ill of the Catholic Church, but we keep an eye on them. We keep an eye on them, going, okay, what are these guys doing? Are they rocking the boat? Or they because over the years we've seen some really from the sexual allegations between the priests and altar boys. And you mentioned you were an altar boy. I was an altar boy too. Um,
never had any episodes though.
Never did either. Thank you, Jesus. But but one of the things that I think he might have mentioned the new Pope Leo is his stance on the LGBTQ, the blessings of the church as far as it goes with same-sex marriage. I don't. Some of the things you go, dude, really? I just because one of the things he said about same-sex marriage, and I'll just bring that up, and then we'll go on to something else, is that he mentioned he didn't say yes or no on the same-sex marriage thing. He said it depends on the locality's traditions, whether or not they are going to allow the blessings of homosexual marriage. And I don't know where that is in Scripture. I just don't see that in Scripture where it says, well, you know what, in Chicago it's this way, but in Venezuela it's this way, but Cuba it might be this way, but in Quebec it might be that way. The Bible is pretty much the same no matter where you're at. It is what it is, or it's not what it is. So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's definitely not in Holy Scripture, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
um, that's kind of what I meant by he's kind of coming in slow,
Mm-hmm.
and he's gonna get his footing. He's not gonna reveal all his cards right now. I could see that right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
He's just gonna kind of slow get in, kind of test the waters, and then we'll get to see what he really stands for. I think at the moment he just doesn't want to rock the boat. He kind of wants to just, get a feel for everything, see how everybody's handling the things that he does say, and then he'll manif- manifest himself later. If you remember, um, what was his last uh, they got all these different names. Not Benedict, the last pope.
Mm-hmm.
When he came in, Pope
Francis.
Francis.
Yeah.
Yeah. When he came in, he was a little cautious too at first.
Yeah.
He was a little, and then he started becoming a little bit more outspoken, and kind of some traditions were kind of broken, and
Okay.
so I sense that we might be in the same kind of theme with him too. He's going to move slow, and then once he gets to where he feels comfortable, we'll get to see who he is.
Okay. All right. Well, fair enough. Okay. Well, we'll just find out. We'll just see where he's at because right now it's just kind of like you're going, oh my gosh, is this guy really? Is he really where we want him to be at? And of course, we were both, and I would assume now you were raised Catholic.
So that's interesting. On one
Uh-huh.
side of the family, I was raised Catholic. On the other
Okay.
side, which I didn't spend a lot of time with, were Baptists.
Okay.
So, and yeah, so that was a dichotomy there. I was also an Episcopalian altar boy too.
Okay. All
So,
right.
yeah.
Well, very interesting. Okay. All right. Well, let's go on and talk about what's going on in the news right now. This is actually now we're both in Las Vegas, and one of the things that came up, we've got a couple of local newspapers here in Las Vegas, and one of them is called the Nevada Current, and the Nevada Current is a left leaning, paper. And so one of the things it was talking about though is it's talking about people who are trying to become foster parents, and you probably saw this article, and I want to read this out of you because this was last week, and the title of the article. It says Clark County, which is the county we live in right now. It says marijuana convictions should not automatically disqualify someone from fostering kids, and I want you to get this. It's very interesting. And it says Clark County is making the case that Nevadans with non-violent marijuana convictions should not be automatically disqualified from becoming foster parents. I'm just going to read little ways down. So this is Assembly Bill 107, and it says over the years we have lost qualified caring individuals due to former criminal records, particularly from marijuana convictions related to possession that were over 20 years older or 20 years old or longer. Ashley Kennedy, a lobbyist for Clark County, told state lawmakers such convictions no longer align with Nevada's current laws. And so here's where we're at on this whole story, is that this was a unanimous bill where both the right and the left said yes, if people were convicted of a crime, marijuana, that they said that they could be foster parents. And I'll tell you, here's my thought, and I don't know what your thought is. We have not talked about this before, but I'll tell you. Uh, I work for the school district right now, and one of the biggest things that I see with kids nowadays is that they will come to school reeking of marijuana. I mean, reeking of it, and we can't blame the kid. We go, well, kid, you live in a household where mom and dad are smoking pot. Pot is a gateway drug, and it leads to bigger things. Just because socially we allow this once illegal drug to be part of, for recreational use, doesn't make it right. We have prostitution in Nevada, in Clark County also, or not in Clark County, but outside of Clark County. But that doesn't make it right. So for lawmakers, I'm disappointed in lawmakers personally, that who would say that it's all right for people who have been convicted of uh, smoking pot to foster kids, because basically what you're saying is somebody who did something illegal, was immature, is all right now, that they're fine now. So I'm kind of disappointed, to tell you the truth. What say you, Pastor Tommy?
I was just trying to figure out the best way to look at that because I looked at it both ways, and you pointed out one which, most kids now grow up in households where they're smoking pot, so there's not
Mm-hmm.
really a difference there. But at the same time, I was thinking, well, these kids probably came out of a situation that they don't need to return back to,
Mm-hmm.
and they probably need a better example of how to live life. And so I was thinking about that, and then you just brought up something else, being disappointed in the lawmakers. A lot of these lawmakers help pass the law or the bills to introduce to legalize marijuana, and I'm sure they're at dispensaries and
Yeah.
hanging out and doing what they do. But so it's like, if we can, let's get them to a clean foster uh, care. I know that they were saying that they're short beds. I guess that was the argument that
Mm.
they're trying to make.
Yeah.
Um, but I think kids should be in a better environment. I just do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I tend to take a hard line on this because I see what the outcome of this is. You know,
Yep.
I, it's this is akin to them saying, well, because we're short on beds, we should allow these kids to be in LGBTQ homes, right?
Right.
Two
Right.
daddies, two mommies. We've got to think of the beds. We got to get these kids. Say, guys, guess what? Um, you don't want to endanger a kid's life. Is it better for you that this kid be in foster care rather than being in a household where he's going to be abused, where it's pretty obvious that parents who smoke pot are not being responsible.
Yeah.
You don't sit around smoking pot in front of your kid and then go, oh yeah, I'm being responsible. Okay, no, you're being childish is what you're being.
Yeah.
It's just like a parent sitting around drinking and getting drunk in front of their kids. You wouldn't say the same thing, right? Or maybe a parent going around yelling and screaming in front of their kids. You're not being responsible.
Right.
You've been given a child, and I'm once again, a lot of people can think about it how they want. I'm looking at what the word says. The word says that your children are a gift,
Yes.
and that you are to take care of them. So, which means that you cannot be selfish, and look at your needs anymore. You got to start looking at the needs of your kids.
Right.
Is it being responsible for you to exposing your kids to something like this? I say no.
I agree. I totally agree. And I speak to a lot of young parents now because I do a little kids Bible study, and the parents are usually on there.
Mm-hmm.
And they call me for advice, and a lot of times it's mothers, married and
Mm-hmm.
single, um, and they're asking for advice, and they tell me the situation. I said, well, you just put the kid, you put yourself before the kid. Well, how, a mom needs this. I say, I get that, but you put yourself before the kid.
Mm-hmm.
Your feelings are before the kid because you're more concerned about how you feel than raising a kid like he should be raised. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I totally agree with you. We got to be responsible with these kids.
Yeah, and we've got to, I think, once again, and not to belabor this point, um, the problem with society now is that people don't put their kids first. Can
Yep.
you imagine? Can you imagine if all these parents said, "Guess what I'm going to do? Is I'm going to forego this, 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 and this. I'm going to sacrifice this, this, and this, and this, and I'm going to raise my kid." Right? The school district is one of those other things. Teachers now are going, well, I would rather have my benefits and all my stuff rather than teach these kids. And so
Yep.
I'm going to go on strike and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that because I want to make more money. Okay, well, I get that. Okay, I get you want to make more money. Maybe you should have gone into a different vocation then. If you want to be a pastor, guess what? And you think you're going to be rich, you're in the wrong business. You know
Not
what
if
I
you're
mean?
gonna preach the truth.
Not if you're going to preach the truth. Guess what? If you became a pastor and you said, "Well, but I don't want to answer the phone when it rings," you're in the wrong vocation.
Yeah.
You cannot do. It is about the people who you are serving.
Yes.
Parents,
Yes.
whoever is a part of this whole thing, you're serving kids, and so
Yep.
you can't look at it as I want to foster a kid. Why would you want to foster a kid if you're smoking pot? Go
Yeah.
smoke pot. When you
Yeah.
grow up, then you can come back and foster some kids. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
but remember there are consequences to this whole thing. There,
Yep.
that is what it is. Speaking of that, Gavin Newsom is in the news. Let's switch. Let's turn a page here. Gavin Newsom is in the news. He's calling on cities to clear the homeless encampments ahead of 2028. Surprise! This is a Daily Wire story. Democrat California Governor Gavin Newsom on Monday called on cities to ban homeless encampments from public property, using billions in state funding as leverage. The guidance from Newsom, an early contender for the 2028 Democratic presidential nominations, you knew that would show up, would prohibit people from placing tents on public properties, including sidewalks, parks, bike paths, while also banning individuals from sleeping on streets with sleeping bags or blankets for more than 3 consecutive days. I wonder why Gavin Newsom is all of a sudden saying no more homeless people all over the place. Do you remember when this happened a couple of years ago? They were having people come and visit San Francisco. They came to visit parts of California, and they said, clean it up, get these people out of these homeless people out of the way."
Yes.
And people go, well, what was wrong with this? A couple of weeks ago, when you have these So, do you think Gavin Newsom is being honest? Do you think he's being truthful? Do you think he's being, altruistic by trying to get these people off the streets, or do you think he actually has some other motive for doing this?
He has his own agenda, and just
Mm-hmm.
like we were just talking about, the kids come first, or should anyway. It's the same thing as me. It's about I want to be president, so I want to clean this up. I want to have a good next few years, make it look good for me, and yeah, that's all it is. You know, I was born and raised in San Francisco,
Mm-hmm.
and I went there in 2023, and I literally wanted to cry. I mean, I literally wanted to cry because when I grew up there, the city was thriving. It was just boom, boom, boom. Yeah, you had homeless people here and there, but not everywhere. They were
Mm-hmm.
just littering the streets, and I mean literally littering the streets. It was so dirty. It was so messy. There were no tourists. There was no traffic on Market Street. I don't know if you've ever been there, but Market
Mm-hmm.
Street is like there was no traffic on Market Street. And I'm like, what is going on here? Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, he is definitely looking to serve himself, and yeah, it's just sad.
I'm really just the gall of these guys is what the hubris. Oh, that's my word. The hubris of these politicians who it seems like every 4 years they come up with some brand new this thing is the greatest thing serving their constituency, and then for 3.5 years they're just like, whatever, I got in office. And then every 4 years or every 2, you can always tell when there's an election cycle, is because
Yep.
all of a sudden they start pulling out the candy, right? The shiny stuff. We used to call it eye candy, right? You pull out the eye
Yep.
candy so that people think you're doing something. Do you think the American people are going to see through this, though? I guess that's the thing. Or do you think they don't care about the American people? They're going, we're going to fool you guys again, as it is, anyways.
Well, let's hope so because there's so many people that are, you know, that are with him, that are like standing with him, yeah, rah rah rah, let's do it. So we just gotta hope that that's the case, that people will see the light. But unfortunately, a lot of people won't.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing about it. And this is a little off topic, but it's still on the same topic. Recently they were coming out with these books. They're going to see a lot of books coming out that are going to be talking about the Biden administration, and they're giving kind of sneak peeks of what they're going to be. Part of them is they were saying that some of his aides were planning to. What it would look like. They were trying to mull it over in their minds. What would it look like if Joe Biden had won the presidency? That they would probably have to put him in a wheelchair, and they've been hiding for him. The whole thing where they've been saying, hey,
Yeah.
even though some people in conservative news have been saying that Biden was a walking mess, mainstream news, mainstream media were all saying, oh no, he's just fine, he's just great. Joe Scarborough, Morning Joe, guys like that were going, oh no, this is the best version I've ever seen of Joe Biden. And people are going, huh? So when you go and you ask people on the street nowadays, people are like going, really? I thought Joe Biden was a mess. But you still see people like Gavin Newsom going, oh, we'll bamboozle them. Don't worry, we're going to still bamboozle those folks. They won't see it coming. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't think they really have had their. I don't think they've. I don't think they've learned their lesson. I think they still believe that the American people are gullible, and that they're going to fall for it again. So Pastor Tommy, you've got to be able to convince me that maybe I'm wrong on this.
Well, no, you're not wrong. But here's the thing: there are gullible people who are already falling for it.
Mm.
They're on that bandwagon, and there's nothing to do to get them off. You can't shake it hard enough to get them off. They're gonna ride, and they're gonna ride till it dies. That's just how it is. I I know people that are like that. They're just with one party. They don't care what they do, what they say, what kind of laws they pass. They are in it for the long haul. And unfortunately, those are the people that are the loudest typically. They're the
Mm-hmm.
most violent typically. And so if they can keep that base stirred up, they're just going to keep running with it.
Well, we'll see what happens here. I'm just so disappointed. I just am because I look at what's going on. The president is now in Saudi Arabia right now.
Hmm.
As a matter of fact, we called for people to pray for him and his
Hmm.
staff. He's been on the road now for a few hours, and the big thing was to pray for the president because you can imagine what would happen right now if things went well with uh, uh, the administration. They're going to the Middle East, trying to strike some deals, and it seems to me like President Trump is more like a governor or more like a mayor than he is a president. He's out there brokering. He's trying to get deals to come to America. I mean, he's doing just a bang up job. I'm just very excited about that. But can you imagine what would happen if you had both sides, Democrats and Republicans, working for the American people? You know, uh,
Wow.
wouldn't that be great? Um, that reminds me of a story. So I'm gonna skip a little bit. And there was the president signed. Let me think. There we go. So the president signed. This is a Breitbart story. This just happened over the weekend. It's probably one of the biggest things that's going to happen in America. Very excited about it, especially if you are a person who takes prescription drugs. Donald Trump signed a major piece of legislation or an executive order on Monday to reduce drug prices in America to rates similar to what those in other nations pay. And I know people are going, huh? What do you mean? The rates that other people pay? Well, folks, we live in America, which means we do not pay the same amount on pretty much anything than the rest of the world does. We're a rich fat cat country, and so we pay for everybody else's thing. So I'm going to read a little bit. It says President Trump signed an executive order on Monday. He signed that order during a press conference at the Roosevelt Room, flanked by Bobby Kennedy and Dr. Mehmet Oz. What is going on is we pay about 10 times more, if and in some cases even more than that, for the same prescription drugs as other nations, even who are economically on par with us. As a matter of fact, there was a story of a guy who called President Trump, and he was talking about this, that he was in London, and he was taking, I think he was taking Ozempic. He was talking about the fat drug. And he said, "Hey, I'm taking the fat pill, or no, fat injection." I think he was taking the fat injection.
Hmm.
And he says, "You know what? I'm in London. I had to pay $88 for this shot." And he says, "But in the United States, guess how much he had to pay in the United States for the same treatment?" I won't even belabor this. $1,300.
Yep.
In Britain, $88. In United States for the same drug, $1,300. That's how much we're being taken advantage of in America. President Trump says no more. We're done. We're not going to do that anymore. We're going to force the big pharma into this. This is actually something he had started during his first administration, at the tail end of the first administration, but the courts and lawmakers wouldn't go along with him. And now he's saying no, it's going to go through this time. And there's another article we probably won't get onto, but it says he probably will not get much opposition from that. So what do you think about that, Pastor Tommy?
I think that that's great. President Trump realizes that the people of America are being ripped off, which is right. Tariffs is a whole thing too.
Mm-hmm.
He's tired of the people. In order to make this country great, you got to give the people an opportunity to be great. And if they're being constantly ripped off and stolen from, how can the country be great? So I applaud him for that. I don't take medicine, but I applaud him for that because I see what the cost of medicine does to people.
Hmm.
I work in finance and I see what people are paying on top of their insurance. They have insurance, but then they still have to pay extra money
Oh yeah.
out of their pocket. And it's crazy. So that's an awesome thing.
I'll tell you, as somebody who does take drugs, so I'm now. I heard about this a number of years ago. That big pharma, their biggest ambition was to try to get Americans on at least 5 drugs. If you're over the age of 55, they want to get you on 5 drugs that you have to take. And guess how many drugs I'm on right now? I
Right.
won't tell you. I'm pretty close. 5 every single day, which means that it's almost like having insurance on your car. You have to
Yeah.
take it, and it keeps big pharma in business. Well, here's
Yep.
the problem with it. We are. I think we're only 5% of the world's population, something like that, and yet we take 75%. We buy 75% of the drugs globally. That's a huge number.
Huge.
And we are the richest nation on the planet.
Hmm.
Why are we spending so much? Why are we so sick? That's another question, I guess. But why are we paying so much for drugs in this nation?
Well, because, and this is not conspiracy. The pharmaceutical companies who own the pharmaceutical companies
Mm-hmm.
have a huge stake in our food products.
Mm-hmm.
And they put pharmaceuticals in the food to make you sick so that you can take medicine. So it's just, you talk about insurance. That's insurance that they get paid on. That was one of, I think you did insurance before. I did
Mm-hmm.
insurance
Mm-hmm.
before. One thing about insurance, as long as that person has that policy, you get paid. So
Yeah.
they're getting paid. Get them on 5 medication, put them on this food, teach
Yep.
them that this is the diet, and then put them on this medication. We're good.
Yeah. Gosh, it just it is so disheartening. It just really is because as these things are starting to you know come to to light, you go to yourself, oh my gosh. I mean, you're trying to give people the benefit of the doubt. You're thinking, Pfizer, Lilly, all these, Moderna, all these companies are working for you, and they're not working for you. They're a parasite on the American public, keeping us sick. So why are other nations not as sick as we are? It's are they just dying of these diseases, or are they just, what do you think?
Depending on where you go, some are, but here's the thing: most countries are able to grow their own food. We can't do that. We
Mm.
got processed vegetables now. That whoever heard of that? We got NGO, all this stuff, all this stuff that. My brother called me the other day. He said, "Man, I bought a watermelon the other day and it was fake." And I was like, "Yeah, that's you got to watch out for it."
So what do you mean? What do you mean fake? A fake watermelon?
You haven't heard about the
No,
fake watermelons?
no.
Yeah,
And I eat
yes.
watermelons all the time.
Well, you go to a good place and you get good watermelons. But
Yeah.
yeah, I've seen a couple
Okay.
where it's not a watermelon. It looks like a watermelon,
Okay.
but it's not a watermelon, and it's bendy. It's just
What?
it's kind of gross, actually. Yeah, it's gross.
I just
So
ate watermelon today. Are you kidding me?
that's
Really? No.
that's good. You didn't have a fake one.
I hope not. Oh my gosh. As matter of fact, the guy at the produce thing goes, "Oh, this is how you can tell it's a good one. It's got this and it's got that, and and he showed you how to ripen it. You flip it upside, that kind of stuff." And
That's good then, because